Welcome to Spill the Tea with Josephine. Today we're talking to Jill Burrell, a romance author who's written the Choosing Providence and Finding Providence series. Welcome to Spill the Tea with Josephine, and today we have Jill with me, and Jill is a romance writer, and I believe your books have a little bit of an element of faith to them.
Yes, Christian romance.
Awesome. And you have a book called It's Complicated. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about that book?
So It's Complicated is what we call a reader magnet. It's free for anyone who's interested in signing up for my newsletter in ebook format. It's also available on Amazon and in paperback. That one is an office romance. It's kind of a opposites attract. He's a little bit neurotic and controlling, and she's the creative part. And they have to work on a project together, a big multi-million-dollar project. And obviously there's attraction, there's sparks fly, but they know they work together. So a romance is not a great idea. And they have to curb that attraction. But then there's other issues at play too, because he's a guardian of his half siblings, his younger teenage brother and sister. And then she's also estranged from her father. So they kind of, those lines become blurry as they help each other out, help each other get through their issues and deal with what's going on in their lives. And there are some big changes that happen. And so it's kind of it's a fun office romance. I really enjoyed writing it.
So is it part of a series or is it a standalone?
It is. So I actually wrote it. It was the fourth book I wrote. So what got me into writing is my father. I was visiting him during spring break. I had been a stay-at-home mom for 20 years with 7 kids. And my youngest was getting ready to go to kindergarten. I'm like, I don't know what to do with my life now, and wasn't quite ready to be done with that stay-at-home mom thing because what if the kids call, what if somebody's sick, what if
Yeah,
can't let the mom
it's nice to have flexibility, right?
Yes, exactly. And I had been visiting my father during spring break, and he says, I have a story I want one of you girls to write. My sister and I were sitting there, and he told us this awesome storyline. I'm like, that would make a really cool story, and even had a few ideas go through my head, but I'm like, I'm not a writer. I can't do it, but I listened really intently to his story. And then in the following months, that story kind of kept percolating in my head. And I thought, that would be cool if this happened or that happened. And then I got a whole nother story idea in my head. I'm like, oh, that would be a fun one to write. And then so he planted the seed, and these stories just kept building. And I decided I wanted to write my story, but if I'm going to write mine, I need to write his first. And so I didn't tell him I was writing it. I included every aspect I recall him telling about his storyline, but I kind of had to do it the way my brain was working it up versus trying to force what somebody else wanted. So I did. I wrote his story, which is actually my very first book I wrote. It's called Rescued. It's book 1 in the series that It's Complicated was a prequel to. And then because I really wanted to write this other story I had in mind, I made the male characters interconnected, they're cousins. And then there's a brother as well. And so I just wrote a whole series in this small town, and you introduce characters and they won't stop speaking to you. You hear these voices in your head. You know how that is.
Very true.
They won't let you go. And they're like, well, I want my own story. And I had introduced a rich young widow in those first series. And she told me she wanted her own story. So I did a series for her family, another little family saga based in the same small town. And now I'm working on a series of the younger siblings of the original characters.
Oh, neat.
In that small town. So I'm starting my third. I just released the first book in February of the younger siblings in that.
What is that book called?
That one's called Love Rebranded.
Okay.
It was kind of a tough one to write because it it has the female main character was a victim of sexual assault,
Mm.
and the male main character was struggling with alcoholism. And so they both had some really, really big
Heavier
things to
themes.
overcome,
Yeah.
demons to face. And it's got a little bit of suspense in it. She gets abducted and has to find a way to get free, kind of thing, and find the strength within herself, type thing. And which obviously makes him face his alcohol addiction as well. And he's in recovery, but it's a struggle for him to stay in recovery. So um, it's a kind of it's got some touchy stuff, but I've got great reviews for it, telling me I did it really well. I'm like, thank goodness, because you just never quite know how things are going to be received.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, but yeah, they've been fun stories to write, but I really, really enjoy being a writer. So yeah, and it's allowed me to stay at home for the most part, which has been nice.
So what's your writing routine? Like, do you have a specific room? Do you have like a specific drink or anything like that that you like to do?
I always have my water. I always have my water bottle next to me. That's about all I really drink while I write. My desk is actually in my son's room. You can see the corner of his bed over there. um, we still have several children at home.
Mhm.
And my husband, when COVID hit, started working from home. So his desk is set up in our room. My desk is set up in my son's room just so I can have that space. And I need lots of light. So I turn on a lamp and I open the blinds. And other than that, I don't have a lot of got to prep for my writing routine, but I just like to have lots of light. And sometimes I'm able to put on some music, just some soft pop hits and stuff. And then I write. I'm unfortunately not a very fast writer. It's kind of hard, even though those voices are talking in the head, it's hard to get them to say what really needs to land on the paper. And quite recently, I've started substitute teaching at school,
Oh,
so I
okay.
haven't gotten near the writing time yet that I would like to. So that's my writing routine. I write when I can, and I need all the light and mostly quiet, except for a little music.
So, with your series, you said it's set in the small town. Can you tell us a little bit more about that small town that your book seems to surround?
So it's based in southeastern Washington,
Hmm.
about 45 minutes outside the Tri-Cities area, north of the Tri-Cities area. Um, and it's like just small town. It's got your typical quirky people, and the gas station that shows up quite often because that's where one of the main characters works. More, he's an auto mechanic. There's a diner across the street that shows up in lots of the books that like has several of the characters featured there in different stages, scenes or whatnot. There's a ranch, and several of the scenes in the first book, well, two of them take mostly place at the ranch outside of town. So it's a big ranch called the Double Diamond. And again, you get the reoccurring characters, which are so fun to keep showing up. I wrote that first book, and then it was just really fun to bring this quirky girl who talks without thinking through what she's actually saying and how it might come across, or what kind of secret she's giving away. And so it was so fun to just kind of keep bringing her back in those books. And even when I bumped to the new series, which is a little bit more of a rom-com series, I still just kind of threw her in here and there. And in one of the books, she was able, her big mouth kind of like made this little fake engagement thing all of a sudden public knowledge. And so
Mm.
now they have to really go with it. And so it's kind of been fun to bring those characters in again and again, and especially in the first series, because I've got the main character in that book, and then I've got his two cousins, and to see those men be able to support each other and help through all the trials and struggles that they're going to and facing the issues was really fun. And I think in some regards just endears you that much more, or keeps you endeared to those particular book boyfriends
Yeah.
when you get to see them again and see them in a little bit different role, but it's still really supportive and an amazing role. So it's been fun. But yeah, the small town is just your typical small town with some quirky characters and fun settings that kind of keep reoccurring, and it kind of endears you to the small town too. It's almost like a whole nother character that gets created.
So it sounds like you've written like kind of a bit of romantic suspense, and now you're moving toward romantic comedy. Which do you prefer for
So
writing?
in some regards, I think I'm a little bit better at the suspense, but my suspense is very mild suspense. It's more of a something has happened, and throughout the whole book, um, and there's a little bits of not necessarily, well, the one has a little bit of mystery, but there's just little bits of stuff that kind of keep you thinking, well, something's going to happen, you know. And then I'm not great with romantic suspense because, like I said, it would be suspenseful throughout the whole book, and it's not. The whole book really is a focus on the relationship and on the romance, but then something happens to test that big time in those first three books, and then the one I just released. And I'm not the greatest at rom-com either. I wish I was so much better at that fun, witty banter and the funny things happening, and the couples find themselves in crazy predicaments. I come up with a few of those, but I'm not like just, oh, I'm so good at this. I wish I was better. They're both fun in their own right. A rom-com stuff is easier to write. When it comes to those suspenseful scenes and need to really get into the emotion and build the tension, those are definitely challenging and difficult to do. Rom-coms can be considerably easier in that regard. So I don't know. I like them both. Sometimes, you just kind of need to shake things up and make a change. But I think I'm good at writing romance. I won't say I'm great at the suspense or I'm great at the rom-com, but pretty good at writing the romance.
You're good at the romance
We'll
part.
stick with that.
That's why the readers keep coming back.
Right?
Do you have a favorite trope that you like to write about or read about?
I do like to read like the fake relationships, fake boyfriend, fiance, the marriage of convenience, because they always find themselves caught in this. Well, I'm never going to fall in love with them, but then they find themselves forced to have to kiss them or do what play the part in public, and it's like, oh crap, I'm falling for them. So I always find those really fun when they're kind of forced into something that, and they, for whatever reason, didn't see what would actually happen, and then have to admit their real feelings. But I also I've done a single mom, single dad, and those were kind of fun too. To be able to, because I have, a lot of kids, just be able to really show what kids are like in these stories. One story I've got a couple of young boys that they're always bickering, but they're often saying things that, you don't really want kids passing on to other adults. They overhear something, then they repeat. It's like, oh shoot, kind of thing. And so that's made it fun, and it just really helps make those characters more alive, which just really builds and enriches the story. So I don't know. I just like romance. It's all fun. I'm not a fan of the alpha male boss hole type thing or the mafia or the dark stuff. But other than that, I like it all. So it's always fun to see best friends to lovers too, and that's what my most recent one was. Is these guys grew up together, and then they both have gone through some really challenging things, and now they're back at the ranch trying to pick up the pieces, and they're trying to figure out how to do that with each other in light of everything they've been through. So friends to lovers is always a really fun one too.
So for your writing style, are your books more on the clean and sweet side, or are they more on the spicy side?
They are clean and sweet. They're Christian, but the Christian elements are really mild. They don't. I have one book that gets maybe just a little bit preachy right at the end, but for the most part, it's just clean Christian romance, clean and sweet.
which is a great market because I find that a
Yes,
lot of readers are looking for that.
they are. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your favorite thing about being an author?
My favorite thing,
I know the hard question. It always is.
it's funny. I enjoy going somewhere and sometimes it's people I know, sometimes it's
Mhm.
people I don't even know that well, but like last summer we we were with my husband's uncle and his wife. And she's like, "Oh, I've been reading your books. I love them. I really enjoy them." I'm like, "Really?" Because she's a really hard working farmer's wife, And I'm like, she just didn't strike me as the type as to even have time to read, let alone to enjoy romance. And so when she said that, I was just like, it just it totally made my day, made me feel great. And I get that fairly often. Somebody that I know, maybe not all that well, but they know I'm a writer and they've been reading my books, and it just tickles me. I have a 14-year-old super fan that's really fun to communicate with occasionally and stuff. And so yeah, it's nice to know the books are appreciated. And they
Yeah.
say you shouldn't read your own reviews, but I do. And it's especially on those days where it's hard to get the words out. And you're like, I'm a horrible writer. I can't do this. It's nice to go read some of those positive reviews and stuff. So I enjoy that. I enjoy people hearing that they enjoy my books.
I never know what to say when somebody comes up to me in public. They're like, "Oh, I like your books." And I'm like, deer in the headlights."
Right? Really?
It's like, really? Like,
It's unexpected. It's unexpected, but it's nice when it happens.
it is. It is
Take that,
absolutely.
thank you. And that's always my response is, you just made my day. Because doesn't happen near as often as we would like.
That's a good response. That is. So how long have you been writing?
So I started the day my youngest went to kindergarten. I had those two stories percolating in my head like all summer long. And I'd often go walking in the mornings. And when I'd walk, the stories would kind of build and, play over things. And so when my youngest started kindergarten, that's when I started writing. And that would be in 2016. So about 8 years now. I did not publish because I didn't know anything about writing. So
Hmm.
I wrote basically two books. Didn't know anything about writing. My husband was very supportive, encouraging, and found the League of Utah Writers group for me to join. And then I got I joined a critique group associated with that, and I joined Romance Writers of America. And I started to learn. I started to attend conferences and classes, and he even found me an online course. And I just started to learn about writing. And those first two books had to go through many major rewrites, and I had to cut out a lot of words, just a lot of garbage stuff that didn't need to be in the story, as I was learning to write. It was during that time that I felt like I found my voice as a writer. So yeah, I finally published my first book in 2021. And I had four of them ready to go at that point. So I rapid released.
Oh, nice.
And I've been pretty slow since once I learned how to write, it actually slowed me down as a writer because I have a hard time turning off that internal editor.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm lucky to get out about a book a year. Unfortunately, I wish I was faster, but I'm not. And then of course life happens, and I still have kids at home, and things things just kind of and unfortunately take precedence over my writing sometimes, and way too often, unfortunately. But yeah, so I started in 2016, finally published the first one in 2021, and then I just released my eighth one
Awesome.
February. So about a book a year is the average, I guess.
It's still quite an achievement. I mean, like, doing a book from beginning to end, it's a long process, and I don't think
It is.
everybody always knows that because it's not just about the writing, it's the revisions, the editing, how is it going to fit with the other ones in the series, things like that.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. No, you're right, and it's just there are some authors who are fantastic and can write 10,000 words in a day. I am not one of those. Usually, if I get 2,500 words in a day, that is a fantastic writing day for me. But then, like I said, because of life, it's hard to be consistent with that 2,500 words a day. A lot of times, if I get like over 3,000, I'm burned out the next day. I can't do anything. So it really it's a struggle sometimes just to get the words on paper, and then your revisions and all your time editing it and everything. It's a challenge. And sometimes as writers, very little of our time is actually spent writing because we've got to do the marketing and put out the newsletters and just do all the other things that helps us be more, successful. And so it definitely limits the writing time.
Yeah, getting visibility itself is like half the project, pretty much. It feels like some days.
It is a lot of work, yes.
So, are you published wide, or are you just through a
I'm just with Amazon right now.
Just with Amazon
Kindle Unlimited. I do have the first two of my books, the prequel and then the first book in the series are on audio. So those are on Audible. Want to get the others done, but it's pretty pricey. I just need more money. I know a lot of people are doing the virtual AI narration. I'm not a big fan of that, so it'll probably be a while before I get more audio done. But yeah, they're all available. I'm sorry, KU.
In KU, yeah. So if you have a Kindle Unlimited subscription, you can read the books, which is awesome. For free. You don't have to purchase them. So if you were to give a new author any advice, what would you give them?
Believe in yourself. Don't give up, because there's so many times, especially when it comes to sharing our work, that's like our baby with the world, knowing that we're opening ourselves up for critique. It's very hard to do, but you can do it. Just believe in yourself, don't give up, and don't let anybody, even some jerk who may say something mean about your writing, don't let them keep you from writing. Don't let them stop. You got to believe in yourself. And that was part of my problem. Part of the reason why I took 4 years, 5 years to get those first few books out, because I just wasn't that I had low self-esteem, but I just didn't think anybody would like it. I didn't think it was good enough. And of course, I needed help with the technology, which my husband's been fantastic about. But I finally told him, if this is ever going to get out in the world, this is ever going to happen, I need your help. And so he's been great. He's totally stepped up as my tech person. But you just don't let anybody keep you from writing. And sometimes that anybody is ourselves. We just tell ourselves, well, it's not good enough. Nobody's going to like it. What if, you just have got to keep going. Believe in yourself.
That's awesome. So I'm going to put links to your website and to your book, It's Complicated, in the description of this video. So if anybody wants to go over and get their free copy of It's Complicated and sign up for Jill's newsletter, please do that. Do you have anything else that you'd like to tell our audience, Jill?
Can't really think of much right now. Just take time for yourself every day and read a book.
There we go. That's good advice. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Jill. I really appreciate it. It was fun talking to you, and hopefully we can have you again sometime.
Thank you. We'll see you.